For today's grim adventure, we find ourselves in Indianapolis, Indiana, where today we're going to be telling the story of what many people consider to be the most horrible crime in the history of Indiana: the murder of Sylvia Likens.
Tonight marks a very special anniversary here in Indiana. It was exactly 50 years ago today that a young woman's death turned into an international incident, inspiring at least 4 books, a play, and 2 movies. 16-year-old Sylvia Likens was found on this night back in 1965. Police called her murder one of the worst crimes they had ever seen, finding the teen beaten, tortured, burned with cigarettes, and eventually starved to death. Likens' parents left her with Gertrude Baniszewski, who 1 month prior, and eventually she and several of her children were convicted of the teen's murder.
They called this case the single worst crime perpetuated against an individual in Indiana's history. Family and friends said today at her gravesite that if history isn't learned, we are doomed to repeat it.
On October 26, 1965, the police were called to a house here in Indianapolis where they found the severely malnourished, mutilated, and tortured body of a 16-year-old girl who turned out to be Sylvia Likens. The investigation into the death of Sylvia Likens uncovered that the woman who owned the house, a woman by the name of Gertrude, her 7 children, as well as the neighborhood kids, were all responsible for the abuse that Sylvia endured. And I have to warn you, if you're not familiar with the case of Sylvia Likens, prepare yourself, because if you do decide to go further than what we're going to tell you, not only is it going to shock you, but it's going to disgust you. When we got to the cemetery, it was an overcast day. It's supposed to rain. We start talking about Sylvia Likens and the sun comes out. But we were here at Oak Hill Cemetery in Lebanon, Indiana, because this is where Sylvia's final resting place is. I'm actually quite surprised that the cemetery really isn't that big. It's a rather small cemetery. And if you do decide to come out here to visit the final resting place, the grave of Sylvia Likens, it's pretty easy because there is a point of interest on Google Maps. And her final resting place is right there. It looks like it's the only one in this area that has trinkets and toys and coins and bracelets on it. A few rocks and a few painted rocks. It says, "Our darling daughter," it's abbreviated, Sylvia M. Likens, 1949 to 1965.
I wanted to bring her roses today, and I thought, after seeing them, pink and purple were just the perfect combination. I hope that she likes them.
Now, if you didn't know this about us, Jessica grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And both of us have been aware of the Sylvia Likens case, what happened to Sylvia. But neither of us knew all of the horrifying details. And we're going to talk about what happened to Sylvia, but not in detail. We're going to kind of do like an overview, if you will. And even that might be a little too much. Now, I felt very uncomfortable about talking about this standing at Sylvia's final resting place. So Jessica's over there and I stepped away for a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and read this. Likens was lying on a soiled mattress on the floor of an empty upstairs bedroom. Her body was covered with cuts, severe bruises, and a variety of open sores, some from over 100 cigarette burns, peeling, scald marks, and missing skin. She had 2 black eyes, shredded lips, and fingernails broken backwards. Further, Likens' body showed evidence of malnutrition. A number 3 was branded on her chest, and the words, "I am a prostitute and proud of it," were etched into her stomach. The official cause of death was a subdural hematomia from a blow to the temple, but shock and extensive injuries contributed to her death. What's crazy to me is everything that Sylvia went through. She was placed in the care of this woman named Gertrude. Her parents were traveling and she was acting almost like the babysitter. Her and her sister, Sylvia and her sister, were there being taken care of, looked after. And this woman and her 7 children and the neighbors over 3 months completely destroyed her. Even just reading that little bit is enough to just kind of leave you at a loss for words. She was a very pretty girl, and something so horrific happened. And you know, when we were picking out flowers, Jessica was very adamant about picking something so beautiful that somebody from a 16-year-old girl from the 60s might like the colors.
I picked these color flowers because I want to remember her as the beautiful young teenager that she once was. But I have to caution you, if you want to go looking further into her case, you will happen upon descriptions that are very graphic in the sexual and physical torture that she endured. You might not be prepared for it.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and say goodbye, Sylvia. Man. Just notice the stone up there on the top left. It says forever loved and forever missed. So right now we are walking up to where the crime actually happened. The house where Sylvia Likens died in. It's no longer here, and instead it's now a vacant lot. For the longest time, the house stood right where this vacant lot now is. And it's crazy to think that for 3 months, Sylvia Likens was held captive in this house and tortured. I remember reading that it pretty much started in the basement, like they kept her in the basement. And then whenever the police were called and they came into the house, they found her in the upstairs bedroom, like one of the upstairs rooms.
This seems like such a nice, normal, quiet neighborhood. And I imagine back in 1965, it was pretty much the same way. But we know that shortly after arriving, the abuse started. And for the last 3 months or so, she was strictly confined to this house. And it sounds like it's straight from a horror movie, but later a neighbor would testify that in the middle of the night, the screams just stopped. And he noted that was about 3 a.m.
I know we're standing here talking about the house that used to be here, and our eyes are immediately drawn to the giant white house that is still here. So I just want to point out again that that is not the house where Sylvia Likens died in. Right where Jessica's walking is where it once stood. And it makes sense that the city tore it down. And some people would say, maybe they should have like a plaque here or like a memorial to her. Not here, but further in the town, there is a memorial to Sylvia Likens. We now find ourselves in a place known as Willard Park, which is actually not too far from where Sylvia Likens died. And in the back part of this park, along this path through the trees, is a memorial to her. The park looks like it has a little bit of everything, from like a skate park to a swimming pool. But if you do come out here to visit, it's in the back corners where you'll find this memorial, and it says the Sylvia Likens Memorial. You can see a picture of her there. I see a light, hope. I feel a breeze, strength. I hear a song, relief. Let them through, for they are the welcome ones. Now, here's a picture of her. Pretty much anytime you look up anything about her case and what happened to her, this is the picture that you see. So this is really nice that they have this here. Then right next to it in the tree, you can see there's a bunch of stuffed animals. There's butterflies, there's a giraffe there. While Jessica's looking at the front of the memorial, let's take a look at the back side of it, because there is some writing here. It says, "This memorial is in memory of a young child who died a tragic death. As a result, laws changed and awareness increased. This is a commitment to our children that the Indianapolis Police Department is working to make this a safe city for all children."
Now, as you can imagine, that when all of the details of what she endured and the truth of her autopsy came out in court, and just how many people knew or even participated in what was happening, the outrage grew and grew and grew. So much so that because of the details of her case, a law was enacted in Indiana where essentially that if you were aware of anything happening, any abuses, you were legally obliged to report it. And there was even a child advocacy center opened in her honor and her namesake.
When people hear the name Sylvia Likens, what comes to mind is one of the worst child abuse cases in Indiana's history. Well, now her family is hoping that her name can take on a more hopeful meaning. It's being used here on this child advocacy center in Lebanon, where Sylvia grew up.
It's a weekly ritual for Wanda and Alva Likens visiting this tiny footstone in Lebanon's Oak Hill Cemetery.
Love ya. Come to see ya.
Hi, Sylvia.
And Sissy's coming Saturday, and we'll be out to see ya.
By all accounts, the grave is simple, unremarkable really, until you read the name on it and realize it belongs to Sylvia Likens, the teenager who was tortured and murdered by a woman her parents had hired to care for her while they traveled with the carnival in 1965.
The abuse started when their income that was to be sent for the babysitting was not received on time.
Sylvia's death and the trial that followed became so highly publicized. Indiana law changed because of it, allowing for anyone to report child abuse, not just professionals.
Some of the neighbors heard Sylvia scream and were too scared to do anything about it or just didn't get involved. We're averaged about 2 cases per week.
Cassie Frazier witnesses the aftermath of child abuse every day.
These children are coming in here telling us some very deep, dark, scary things.
Frazier interviews children from Boone and Montgomery counties when abuse has been reported.
Last year alone, we saw 199 kids.
For the past 5 years, those kids have come here to the Boone County Child Advocacy Center. That name, though, is about to officially change and carry Sylvia Likens' name, and with it the legacy she's come to represent for victims of child abuse.
And with that being said, we want to thank you for going on this journey with us, telling the story of Sylvia Likens, from her final resting place to the house where it happened to this memorial in the park. And again, if you do find yourself wanting to know more about this case, by all means look it up. Just prepare yourself, because the details can get pretty graphic. And with that being said, we want to leave you with this. Like Jessica was just saying, because of Sylvia Likens, awareness is key. If you're aware of something, or if you yourself is being abused, or find yourself in a situation that is not right, or it just doesn't feel right, let somebody know. Reach out. There's always somebody to talk to. With that being said, till next time.
Wherever I come, bad luck is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. A bad luck's always a